of each. Newsletters and info packets. In other words, 5 to 6 newsletters and 5 to 6 info packets, all for about $25 a year. I'm going to enclose a printout of the guidelines that the Rainbow Peace Projects International Councils have reached consensus on, so that you'll get a better idea of how we're working things, so that they're decentralized and can still work together as a global network. Though we've agreed to use a 2/3 majority to constitute consensus agreements, there were no negative votes on the guidelines. That means it was 100% consensus on it, even though they've agreed to accept less as a general rule. None of the Rainbow Peace Project International folks are into the theoretical 100% agreement that the, quote, high hippie elders, question mark, unquote, try to push at gatherings as that concept, though laudable if it could work. And I, as an aside here, might add that I have seen it work, and it does work beautiful, and it does. And it used to be able to work great, but it is not easy sometimes, and it doesn't seem to be working lately in all circumstances. So I'll sort of agree with him that laudable if it could work. It has been totally abused by a handful of folks to block consensus of anything that they can't control.
Now you went into a story.
And I was telling about Zeus at this last, the 1991 Rainbow Gathering, where he was blocking consensus much, or most of the time actually. Often, I know a lot of times I personally almost had a consensus for either Colorado or the Four Corners Bioregional Zone, which would was one of the options that most people thought that either a consensus was reached or no consensus was reached, but that was sort of where the vast majority of the people that were there and that left within a few days of the close of the gathering, which normally the Vision Council used to never last more than till past sundown, really, for the first years of the Vision Councils that I was at.
Were there more people at the Vision Council now than there were at that point?
No. Some of those Vision Councils had a lot of people, and they got a lot done really quickly, and they did reach consensus. Although at some point I can remember some heavy scenes when they were deadlocked and didn't, and you thought they never would, but they did, because people, well, there's all kinds of reasons.
They reached 100% consensus at that time?
Not all the time. There were not always consensus. There were precedent for not reaching consensus, and there were some that didn't. It's not a consensus unless there's 100% reached, according to the Rainbow tradition, as far as
that's tradition. Now, according to the guidelines.
The guidelines are for the separate Rainbow Peace Projects International.
Oh, okay.
And they have a nice set of guidelines, and this comes out of the contacts and the ongoing stuff that he did. That was a result of the councils that we started in Montana and had in New Mexico the next year.
So his consensus has nothing to do with the gathering itself. It has only to do with the peace projects.
Right, but it's these were evolved out of groups that we put together using 100% consensuses that we reached at Rainbow gatherings. And later, for a long time, we always had 100% consensuses on these ongoing Rainbow Peace projects, Rainbow Peace villages, Rainbow Peace fleets. For a long time, they operated on 100%. Now they've evolved to this agreement which they reached, where I'm not going to read them all. There's 16 of them. And it's just the last one says, it is agreed that the definition of consensus used by Rainbow Peace Projects International is the common agreement by 2/3 or more of all participants actively involved. Even though that and every agreement reached before this has been 100%, and this in fact was 100%. Now they've agreed that it'll be 2/3. But
the actual doing will be 2/3.
Yeah, and okay. An earlier point is that everybody involved has an equal guideline, but that.
Well, why don't you read all the guidelines?
Okay, we'll go through them. We'll go
through them right now.
Rainbow Peace Projects International, regarding guidelines agreed to by General Council. Each project agrees to be dedicated. Number one, each project agrees to be dedicated to helping further world peace on whatever level they can, locally, regionally, globally. Either and or as many as possible, but on whatever level they can.
So a wide open.
Anything you can do to further world peace on whatever level, which is sort of on all levels, as many levels as possible. You should not be working against world peace on any level, but you don't have to be working globally all the time if you're just doing a small thing. whatever level you're on, you're dedicated to helping further world peace. I don't think anybody else would disagree with that. Number 2, each project is dedicated to helping find viable means to further ecologically sound ways of living, and to do their best to create the realities by which to do such.
Okay, so that goes right with that one.
Yeah. Number 3, each project must guarantee that each person involved in its active council has an equal voice in any decision involving their project. Number 4, each project must respect the autonomy of other projects and their right to make decisions appropriate to their needs, as long as such does not violate the general guidelines that all projects agree to.
Oh, there's another set of guidelines.
No, these are the general guidelines. I'm saying if you have a specific group, council, or something that you're doing a peace fleet, and you're doing it in the Baltic as an ecological thing, you can have your own council there making decisions about what your own actions there are and what relevance they have.
And nobody else can say anything.
And nobody can come from that's not involved in that, and that hasn't been involved in that, and block the consensus on what you're doing over their own ego trip because they haven't been involved in it and they shouldn't expect to. But at the same time, you are not to go against these general guidelines that we've all agreed to.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, your day-to-day councils will decide what you're going to do in common on your own individual projects.
Yeah, by 70% consensus only, though.
Oh yeah, that still goes over. But at the same time, those people voting on those should be the people actively involved.
Yeah.
Anybody's willing to sit in on any of them, but if it's something that people have been working on for months and have a lot of involved in and a lot at stake in, you shouldn't expect to just show up and not know what's going on and be able to
Well, you need to say you need to talk 30% of the people into it. You need to
well, I mean,
31%
but I mean, even so, if they've been working on it for a month and you show up and with friends of yours and you have 30% of the people, you have just enough. I mean, so I'm saying you shouldn't expect to be voting members of a council that's been working on something that you don't know about yet. That's well, it isn't obvious until you put it down. The original traditional rainbow ethic would say that anybody that shows up at any time can consider themselves a part of a rainbow or any rainbow project and have an equal vote in it. And we're not contradicting that, but we're just saying it's not considered polite to vote on things that that you're not involved in. When those are individual projects, and they don't.
That would have been the way to say it too.
Well,
it's not polite to do it. You can do it, but it's not polite to do it. You're not being kosher about it. Yeah. Okay. So what's
that's just the guide. These are just guidelines.
Yeah.
These are guidelines agreed, but they're just guidelines. That's under number 4. Each project must respect the autonomy of other projects and the right to make decisions appropriate to their needs, as long as such does not violate the general guidelines that all projects agree to. Number 5. Any decisions made that have the nature of being binding upon all Rainbow Peace Projects must be presented to the entire Rainbow Peace Project International Network, and he has probably hundreds of thousands of names from all over the world. I mean, there are probably tens of thousands that would actually be considered part of this actual network. It has to be some. I didn't realize this was actually quite this strong worded for a consensus approval, in which every active participant has an equal voice and is allowed to present their opinion, their opposition to any proposed agreement, so that it may be considered before any final vote is taken. So obviously, you couldn't get together even a quorum of 2/3 of the people and make a decision on the spot, even if they all agreed to it. Number 6, any decision that will have an effect on any project or council must be presented and approved by all persons or projects which such decisions would affect. And in that case, apparently, one major project could sort of veto if the decision affected them and would totally screw up their thing.